I obtained custody of my sister's 3 kids back in 2018 after she left them alone for 2 weeks to go on a drug bender. It was a huge transition for the kiddos because not only did they have to switch schools and daycares, but they also wouldn't be able to see their mother anymore. I've adopted the kids and have full custody of them. They're doing better now and leading happier lives. Recently though, my sister was released from prison and wants to see them. She called me begging to have a visit with them and telling me that I could give them back now because she was out of prison. I've had a talk with the 9-year-old and he says he doesn't want to see his mom yet. He told me that he still hates her for leaving him alone. The girls have no memories of her. The smallest was only 3 months old the last time she saw her. I feel like I could have helped them foster a better relationship with their mom, but I don't want to force them to meet her if they don't want to. My close family has told me that the oldest doesn't know what he's talking about and it's my fault the little ones don't remember their mother because I didn't take them to see her when she was in prison. They also told me that it's my responsibility to force them to meet her even when they don't want to because it's what's best for them and they shouldn't grow up without their mother. I've spoken to a professional about this and they said it should be up to the kids. Am I being a jerk to my sister by not letting her kids see her if they don't want to? I gave my oldest 2 weeks to really think about whether he wanted to see my sister or not. I figured that his original decision might have been made out of anger, so I wanted to give him time to make such an important decision. Ultimately, he decided that he did actually want to talk to her. I was a bit surprised, but we set up a Zoom call between them with me supervising. Right before the call, he admitted to me that he wanted to talk to her just to see if she'd say sorry. She didn't. Instead, she opened the call with, "Hello, it's been so long. I guess you're ready to come home with me now?" That's when she noticed I was sitting there with him. She immediately launched into accusations of alienation, followed by saying if I don't give the kids back, then she'd call the police and say I kidnapped them. My oldest was disgusted and asked her if she was going to apologize to him. She had the audacity to ask what for. At that point, he shut off the Zoom call. I asked him if he was okay, but he spent the rest of the afternoon in his room by himself. That night, he told me that he never wanted to talk to her again. I told him he didn't have to talk to her again if he didn't want to, and we'd never give him back over to her. Before now, I honestly never considered myself as their parent, even after legally adopting them. Now I realize those kids are my kids and they're going to be for the rest of my life. This is why you might not want to use Facebook to find a roommate. My sister and I work in the medical field and we're renting a house together. The rent was pretty high and we quickly decided that it would be helpful if we got a roommate. However, after weeks of looking, we still couldn't find anyone. My sister and I were desperate and posted in the Facebook groups about needing a roommate. This woman in her late 30s named Tammy answered and we were excited that we had found our new roommate. When we met her and talked to her, everything seemed normal. She seemed nice and put together. My sister's in residency and I'm in nursing school, so we made it clear that we needed a respectful roommate who understood our schedules. When she first moved in, everything seemed to be going well. After the first week, I had a friend come over to hang out. While my friend was there, Tammy came into my room and introduced herself. I could smell the alcohol on her breath as she spoke and she started hitting on my friend. She kept telling her how she was down for hot girl bye shit. She was doing this all while aggressively petting my labradoodle. Luckily, my friend just laughed it off and we assumed that she was drunk. Then Tammy went to her room and after about 10 minutes, we started hearing moaning coming from her room. She didn't have any guests over and we tried to ignore it at first, but the moaning escalated to screaming. We could hear things being thrown around in the room as well. After 20 minutes of this, we got worried and went to get my sister. My sister talked to Tammy and she apologized, saying she was just sleeping. About 2 weeks later, my sister stayed at her boyfriend's house and I was stuck with Tammy. I made myself dinner and I was eating, and that's when Tammy came downstairs. She was blasted drunk again and went to the stove. She started reheating my food, and that's when I asked her if she wanted some, but she said she was just stirring my food for me. After I ate my dinner, I went to look and she had taken all of it. Over time, I noticed she would eat our food without permission, even when I asked her not to. When I'd call her out on it, she would lie and say she didn't touch my food. We used to keep our liquor in the kitchen, but she started drinking from the bottles and we had to move them to our rooms. She would go into my room because I had a bottle of liquor and she drank it, then fill it up with water. However, it was easy to tell because it was whiskey. One night I was studying for one of my exams and I hear loud screaming. I assumed it was coming from her room, but when I opened my door, I realized it was coming from outside. I went downstairs and saw her laying on the floor of the backyard, screaming her head off. I told her that she was being loud and the neighbors would call the cops. She got up and apologized and then went to her room. However, she repeated this again a couple days later. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. A week after she started screaming in the backyard, my sister and I decided that we needed to get her out. We had a house meeting and told Tammy that she has a month to move out. At first, she was crying and upset, acting like she didn't know what she did wrong, but then she accepted it. However, the last month with her was the worst month of my life. I was concluding the semester at nursing school and it was about to be finals. She started eating me and my sister's packed lunches out of our lunch boxes. She also started breaking dishes on purpose, leaving the glass where our corgi and labradoodle would play. When I confronted her about it, she blew it off saying that it was an accident and hadn't gone around to cleaning it. One night, she sat me and my sister down threatening to sue us because we were trying to get rid of her during COVID. My sister wasn't having it and told her to get her lawyer. I installed 7 cameras in the house because I couldn't trust her while we weren't there and I was worried for our dogs. She would put her cigarette butts and ashes in our dog's food bowl, so I knew I needed to watch her. Whenever I checked the cameras, she was always up to something like eating our food, looking through our things, and going into our bedrooms when we weren't around. The craziest part of all of this is when she finally moved out and we saw her room. It was a complete mess. There was menstrual blood all over the carpet, scratches on the wall, and she left a painting that she had done of our house burning while she walked away. Story time about how I found out my husband was cheating on me with his stepsister and her best friend. My husband and I had been married for 5 years. We were living in another state when he was fired from work and my job wasn't paying well enough. We decided to move in with his family until we could figure things out and get back on our feet. He had a stepsister and she was drop dead gorgeous. Since he didn't have a job, he would spend most of his time at home while I dropped off our son at daycare and then went to work. When I would get home, he'd go to the bar. At first, I thought things were normal and he was just stressed out about not being able to find work. However, I started getting suspicious once he started being a little aggressive towards me. He stopped wanting to talk to me as often and barely slept next to me anymore. His parents planned a trip to Europe and asked us to take care of the house while they were gone, to which we agreed. I noticed whenever I wasn't home, he would be home alone with his stepsister, and whenever I got back, they would both leave. I also noticed he wasn't trying very hard to find a job, leaving all the responsibilities to me. One day I was calling him while I was at work and he wasn't picking up. I had a bad feeling and asked my boss if I could leave early. Thankfully, my boss was nice and let me go. When I got home, I heard 2 girls giggling and the sound of a guy huffing coming from our room upstairs. What I saw next left me devastated. When I came home and heard the sounds coming from our room upstairs, my blood was rushing through my body. I quietly went up the stairs and found my husband screwing his stepsister and her best friend at the same time. I was so devastated and heartbroken. I didn't know what to do, so I quickly rushed out of the house and went back to work. When I didn't return home that night, my husband called me asking why I was late and started accusing me of cheating. That's when I realized that none of them had seen me earlier and decided to get back at him. Earlier that day when I returned to work, my boss asked me if I was okay because he noticed my eyes were red from crying. I broke down, and you know how the saying goes, a shoulder to cry on becomes a D to ride on. When I told him what I saw, he told me to file for divorce and make him pay for the nasty deed. He also told me that he'd be by my side and would take care of everything, including a place for me and my son to stay. I went home that night like nothing was wrong and acted like things were okay. The next day came and I went home early again to catch him in the act. This time I recorded footage of him cheating for evidence. In the end, I got a divorce, money, and full custody of my son. Now I'm married to my boss, living in a big house with someone who deeply loves and respects me. Story time about the weirdest things to happen while working as a stripper. I was giving a $25 dance in a busy room filled with other dancers. It was the room for the cheap customers, so there weren't any dividers. Just a big room filled with armchairs and people watching each other get private dances. At this specific club, dancers were required to remove our shoes during private dances so we wouldn't damage the armchairs. We usually put our shoes and whatever else under the chair so that nobody would mess with them while we were busy. After the private dances, my guy and the guy next to me are the only ones to buy a second dance. The rest of the girls clear out and it's just me and another girl. When I look over, the other guy is sniffing the sole of the girl's shoe behind her back while she's grinding on him. We make eye contact and he drops her shoe. I don't want to ruin my own private dance by saying something, so I ignored it and just continued to do my thing. They were only 3 feet away, so it was hard not to notice things. I look over again and he's doing it again. He noticed me looking and dropped the shoe, looking away. Finally, a third time I look over and this dude is giving the heel of her stripper shoe a freaking BJ, all while making eye contact with me. This time, he holds eye contact and intensely stares at me. That's when I got creeped out and avoided him the rest of the night. I also never told the girl that her shoe had been defiled. One night, there was an older gentleman around 55 years old buying lots of double dances. He was tipping generously and even buying everyone in the bar a round of drinks at some point. It was around 1 in the morning when this large, curly, red-haired lady smashes down onto the push and door lever as hard as humanly possible. Every patron in the club turned and looked at the door. She stood there in all her glory with a red fried perm, mom jeans, and thick frame glasses. I could instantly tell that she was seething with anger. She was on a mission and stormed towards the back of the club where the VIP rooms were, all while shouting, "Derek! Derek, where the F are you?" The bouncer immediately notices and runs towards the back, trying to stop her from causing any problems. However, it was too late. She swings the VIP room door open and sees him in there with 2 girls getting a double dance. She immediately grabs him by the arm and starts yanking him towards the door, all while smacking him repeatedly. She pulls him out into the parking lot and then into her car. That was the last we ever saw of generous old Derek. Story time about how my carefree friend got rich by listening to the universe. I have a friend named Paige who's a free spirit. She believes in going with the flow, not stressing and letting the universe decide what happens next. I've always been more of a planner and kind of a workaholic. Paige always said that I work too hard and need to relax. She'd say I stress about things too much and the universe already has a plan for me, so I should let it run its course, but I never listened. I've had 2 jobs and I've been in school full-time for as long as I can remember. I always believe that if you want something, you have to work hard for it and make it happen. I never believed in just sitting back and waiting for things to happen for me or leaving it up to the universe, as she'd often preach. However, maybe I should have slowed down and taken her advice. Over a few years, Paige and I drifted apart. She messaged me one day telling me that she was coming back to town and she'd like to visit me while she's here. I was absolutely shocked when she pulled up in a brand new Tesla. Paige never really cared about money and didn't really work besides selling her natural healing oils, which paid okay but nothing crazy. I hopped in and noticed she also had an expensive designer bag, eco-friendly of course, and expensive jewelry on. When I asked her where she got all this from, she told me that the universe got it for her, which is something that I'd expect her to say, but it didn't make any sense. What she was about to tell me changed my outlook on things and made me think that Paige's ideas and beliefs weren't so far-fetched after all. Paige told me how she always knew things would work out and the universe would take care of her if she did her part. She told me she got all of this money by being nice to the earth and catering to Mother Nature, which still made absolutely no sense to me. It sounded good, but I knew that the money didn't just fall into her lap from the sky for being nice to the planet and believing that the universe would take care of her. Upon further questioning, she finally explained that the universe told her to invest half of her money into something she believed in and donate the other half. She said she had been putting half of her money into solar power and eco-friendly stocks and donating the other half to environmental activists over the years. Paige believed that since she was doing her part to care for the planet was caring for her back. Well, it turns out that the stocks that she invested in for years blew up. She made enough money to live comfortably for the rest of her life. To be honest, I was in complete shock. I always thought her carefree attitude and laid-back lifestyle wouldn't get her too far, but I turned out to be completely wrong. She ended up doing way better than me, all while working and stressing a lot less. Since then, I've taken a page from Paige's book. I worry a lot less about the little things and try to enjoy my life with her same stress-free attitude. Maybe with this way of thinking, the universe will look out for me next. Or maybe she just got lucky.